The crystalline halls of the Galactic Council's flagship hummed with tension as General Aienígen of the Corvith Empire stood before the viewing port, his four arms clasped behind his ridged back. For 300 cycles, he had commanded the most feared armada in known space. His tactical brilliance was studied in every military academy from the core worlds to the outer rim. He had never lost a battle, until now. The human requests permission to board, General, his adjutant chirped, mandibles clicking nervously. Aienígen's vertical pupils contracted. Granted, the war had lasted 18 months, a mere heartbeat in galactic terms, yet an eternity for those who fought it. The Corvith had expected to crush the upstart species called humans within weeks. They were primitives, barely 2 centuries into space travel, lacking proper shield technology or quantum drives. Their worlds should have fallen like dominoes. Instead, they had done the impossible. Aienígen remembered the Battle of Proxima Gate, where his perfectly orchestrated pincer movement had been shattered by an Earth vessel that had simply rammed through his flagship's shields at relativistic speed, sacrificing itself to create an opening. He remembered the siege of New Kampala, where human soldiers had held a supply depot for 47 days without reinforcements, using nothing but stubborn courage and improvised weapons. But it was the battle of the Helios Array that had broken him. The door hissed open. A young human woman entered first, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, eyes sharp and calculating. She wore the simple gray uniform of the Earth Defense Force, with minimal insignia. Behind her came a man of similar age, broader in build, with tired eyes that had seen too much. General Aienígen, the woman said, her voice steady. I'm Commander Natalie Chun. This is Lieutenant Commander Michael Torres. You requested this meeting. The general's translator implant rendered her words into his native tongue, but he had learned enough human languages to catch the weariness in her tone. These were not triumphant conquerors. They were exhausted survivors. I did, Aienígen replied, his voice a deep rumble. I had to see with my own eyes the madman, or madwoman, who defeated me. Natalie's expression didn't change. I'm no madman, General. Just someone who understood what you didn't. And what is that? That you can't calculate desperation. Aienígen gestured to the holographic display at the room's center. With a thought command, he activated it. The Battle of the Helios Array materialized between them, a three-dimensional recreation of humanity's impossible victory. I had you surrounded, the general said, pointing to the red markers indicating his fleet. 300 capital ships to your 47. I controlled the high orbital positions. My reserves were unlimited. Your supply lines were cut. Surrender was your only logical option. Michael spoke for the first time, his voice rough. Logic doesn't win wars, General. People do. Aienígen's head crest flared with irritation. Your tactics were suicide. You divided your already inferior force into 7 groups. You abandoned defensive positions. You sent half your fighters on trajectories that guaranteed their destruction. He turned to face them directly. You violated every principle of warfare I've studied for 2 centuries. Yet somehow you won. Natalie stepped closer to the display, her finger tracing the battle's progression. You're right. Everything we did was wrong by conventional standards. But we weren't fighting a conventional battle. She looked up at the towering alien. We were fighting for survival. And when you fight for survival, you don't need to win. You just need to make victory too expensive for your enemy. Explain, Aienígen demanded. The 7 groups, Natalie continued, manipulating the hologram. Each was designed to create maximum chaos with minimum forces. While you were repositioning to engage them, we stripped down our remaining carriers and loaded them with every kinetic weapon we had. Cargo containers filled with tungsten rods, decommissioned satellites, even mining equipment. Michael picked up the narrative. You expected us to defend the array. Instead, we used it as bait. While your fleet surrounded it, we turned our cargo carriers into missiles and sent them through the array's gravity well, using its momentum to accelerate past your point defense systems. Aienígen felt his secondary hearts quicken as he relived the moment. The human vessels had appeared from nowhere, moving far too fast to intercept, their shields down to maximize speed. They had punched through his formation like bullets through flesh, each one releasing its payload of primitive kinetic weapons into the tightly packed Corvith ships. 41 of my capital ships destroyed in 16 minutes. the general said quietly. Thousands of crew lost. And your casualties? 39 ships, Natalie replied. But they were already evacuated. We used AI autopilots for the final approach. Madness, Aienígen breathed. Brilliant, wasteful, desperate madness. It's called being human, Michael said. We don't have the luxury of your empire's resources or your centuries of military tradition. What we have is the ability to adapt, to sacrifice, to do whatever it takes when our backs are against the wall. Aienígen studied them both in silence. In their faces, he saw something the Corvith had lost millennia ago, the raw, primal drive to survive against impossible odds. The willingness to break every rule, to embrace chaos, to turn weakness into weapons. I told my high command that humans were too unpredictable to fight, the general said finally. That any species crazy enough to weaponize their own cargo ships and treat their spacecraft like kinetic ammunition was too dangerous to engage. They did not listen. They insisted I adapt my strategies. But you can't adapt to chaos, Natalie said. You can only embrace it or be consumed by it. Precisely. Aienígen's crest lowered in what humans might interpret as respect. I came here to understand how I lost. Now I understand. I was defeated not by superior tactics or technology, but by an opponent who refused to fight by any rules at all. He paused. The Council is finalizing the peace treaty. The Corvith Empire will withdraw from human space and recognize Earth's sovereignty. That's all we ever wanted. Michael said that as they turned to leave, Aienígen spoke again. Commander Chun, a question, if I may. Natalie looked back. If we meet again in battle, what will you do? I will have studied your chaos. I will expect your unpredictability. A thin smile crossed Natalie's face, the first emotion Aienígen had seen from her. Then we'll do something even crazier, General. That's what makes us human. We never run out of desperate ideas. The door closed behind them, leaving Aienígen alone with his thoughts. For the first time in his long military career, he was grateful for peace. Because he knew, deep in his warrior's soul, that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their courage, that it was their infinite capacity to embrace madness when survival demanded it. And that, he thought, was the most terrifying weapon in the galaxy.